we get to your times in Budapest, which there is a lot to talk about, definitely. Many people probably don't know, including myself. So what exactly did you do before you joined Budapest?
Yeah, okay. So I was 10 years prior to joining Budapest Airport. I was in the airline industry. I was recruited by British Midland in the UK. And prior to that, I had a big career, obviously, despite my young looking appearance. I worked for BMI, British Midland in the UK in sales and marketing. And then whilst I was there, we integrated the airline into Star Alliance in 2001. And I was the integration manager, if you will, and I got to know the people in Star Alliance quite well, and they're seemingly quite satisfied with my integration attitude that they offered me a position to become the director of sales in Frankfurt, Germany for Star Alliance. So I was between 2003 and 2007, I was a director of sales for Star Alliance GmbH in Frankfurt, Germany, which took me all around the world to meet all of the member airlines. At that point, when I joined, there were 15 members, and then now there's, as you know, there's quite a lot. But it was certainly a wonderful, enriching experience. But so I come from more or less a commercial background in the airline industry. Prior to that, I had a decade or so in the rent-a-car industry with the likes of Budget Rent-a-Car and Hertz Rent-a-Car. Also in operational capacity, but it's mostly in commercial. And that's where my career has been forged. So I guess putting all that together, almost 30 years, gosh, it's a long time, almost 30 years in the travel industry. And so it's been pretty exciting.
Yeah, amazing. So let's get to those questions we already received from the community. So I have first couple of questions from our friend Enzo Zangrilli from Italy. This is a really interesting one to start with. Which have been the airlines you would never thought would fly to Budapest Airport during your tenure, and therefore you consider your biggest wins for those 11 years?
Okay, firstly, greetings to Enzo. He was part of my early part of the career. He was a customer, and we had a few challenging but really progressive business encounters as well. So I extend my best wishes to him. But good question. Yeah, so there've been a few really. I think just to set the background scene, and I don't want to eat too much into the time because we've got a lot to cover. It's I was recruited to the business because of my commercial experience and my marketing experience, and simply the CEO at the time, Mr. Jos Lammers, who now, as you know, works for an airport in Bavaria. I won't mention it, but he just said to me, "Teach us marketing." And I said, okay. And in exchange for teaching the business marketing, I was given the opportunity to manage operations and security as well, which, if I remember correctly, my first of 4 interviews, I don't recall being too explicit. So I found myself joining Budapest Airport in 2009, looking not just after the marketing area, which is my career, as I mentioned, but also operations and security at the time as well. And I had over 800 people working for me out of the 1,100 that work for the company. So that was fascinating. I had to learn about operations in an airport environment and also security. But where I found my home was my comfort zone, which of course is commercial marketing. So just track forward now to what we did at the very early stages. I managed to assemble a good team. I generally, when I approach a business or when I approach a company, I don't like to just bring in people of my own. One, because I'm fair to the people that are there. So I have a look around, let the dust settle, and then you can make whatever changes that you can there. So we did. We crafted a good team. We had a team, and we fine-tuned it and crafted it. But what was fundamentally missing at Budapest Airport was any kind of strategy in terms of how to grow the network. So we put together a commercial approach, which was based on a white spot network strategy, which I stole from my time at Star Alliance. And generally, the concept is you look at a global map and you find out where you're flying to at the moment, or airlines are flying to, and where you have gaps. And gaps based on market data in terms of, there's demand between point A and B, and more often than not, it's going indirectly. So we set about a key target of white spots that we needed to fill. And where we had some existing connections, we looked at whether there was extra demand because we needed to increase the frequency. So very simply, we introduced a logic of grow the pie where it already exists and there's more demand, or where it doesn't exist, get airlines connected there. We had Malev there when I joined, as you know, and at that point, they were 40% of our passenger share, some 3.3 million. And we used their hub network as a key part of our own approach and strategy. Keep in mind that Vienna is some 220, 230 kilometers west of here. and they have a Star Alliance hub. I'm very familiar with that, given my background. So it was hard to shift the mindset from there. So in addition to Malev, we had, and we still have, British Airways. We have Finnair, of course, but that was about it. And they didn't really cooperate with each other. They were really, really competing on many levels. So we decided to embrace that into our approach and our strategy. And we started contacting some of the long haul airlines. We tried with Malev, but because they were at that point so inwardly focused on survival, and they did okay in the last couple of years before they collapsed, we managed to persuade, after numerous meetings and discussions, American Airlines by selling them the Budapest story, by telling them the value that this market could offer. And keep in mind, 2009, it was the end, coming towards the end of a deep, deep crisis. And network airlines, particularly from the US, particularly with a long sector of over 9 hours, with an old aircraft, needed really convincing. But we managed to convince them. So to come back to Enzo's question, probably one of the most difficult ones was American, and they came in 2010. We managed to get them to collaborate with Malev. They had some interline business with Malev. It wasn't significant, but they had quite a bit, and they were quite pleased. Despite the inefficiencies of their aircraft type, despite the high fuel costs at the time, etc. But it worked quite well. And then building on that, we started to engage with Japan Airlines. And in 2011, we made fairly advanced progress with Japan Airlines. So we'd have American from the US, and we wanted Japan from the East. We already had Finnair, we already had BA, we already had Malev, we had an ever-growing South, Central and Eastern Europe network. It was a perfect fit. JAL in the end finally didn't decide to come. They postponed it for another year. And we know what happened in 2012. Malev collapsed. And then everything started to fall apart from that. But I don't want to leave this point on a negative. But I would say that was probably one of the hardest ones that we managed to get over the line. But then, since Malev collapsed and the recovery, which we can talk about later, we're proud of some of the larger airlines that have come in here, because short-haul intra-European is our core business. Some 75, 80%, sometimes even 90 of our passenger volume is European, because we're a beautiful city break destination. We have lots of trade ties with other European partners. So consequently, that's where the airlines come from. But I don't want to leave this question without naming some of the successes that the team and I have managed to pull off. Qatar Airways, for example, Emirates, American, as I mentioned, came back a couple of years ago to Philadelphia, and they announced Chicago for this year, and we know what's happened. Air Canada Rouge, and not to mention numerous airlines who started services to China. And in that context, you need to keep in mind that we had no flights to China at all about 4 years ago. And now, as of the summer season this year, which should have been the case, we had 7 destinations served by 4 airlines to China. And that's fantastic. So it complemented a lot of the short-haul network by having this massive growth of long-haul. And if we analyze the growth of long-haul, 2019 compared to 2010, it grew by nearly 1,000%. So I'd say, yeah, every passenger is worth it for us. They tell a great story, but the long-haul ones are really the ones that are bringing you premium passengers and people who really invest in the market. So long haul, I'd say, with those airlines that I named, is the answer to Enzo's question.
How long did it take for Budapest Airport to recover the traffic lost after Malev's collapse? So we are talking about 3.5 million passengers, roughly.
It was definitely in the first year, we recovered most of it, but I would say probably 2 years is more or less 100% accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of seat capacity, we recovered most of it in the first year. But as we all know in our industry, seat capacity doesn't always extrapolate into volume. So I would say definitely within 1.5 years. So it's in between both. So both A and B were right to some extent.
Good.
And just to put some context around that, if I may, Juraj, because we were asked by our board and our shareholders how this recovery compared to others in the industry. And the only reference points that we had at the time were, of course, Brussels with their national airline and Zurich with their national airline. And it took both of those airports about 4.5 years. So this means that our recovery growth, our return to the standards that we had previously was so much faster. And that's, of course, not just because we have a great airport and a great team and a destination. It's a combination of everything. And that's something that the team are very proud of.
Was also maybe one of the key differences in the strategy that you focused quite a lot on the low-cost segment to bring back the volume, comparing to Zurich and Brussels, which they probably didn't do the same?
Yes, I think just to put some background context briefly, Malev, look, let's not hide the secret, hide the facts. They were critically ill every winter up to that winter, and we always had a plan in the drawer. We looked at their whole network. We had a plan for recovery for each one of those destinations. We had target airline 1, target airline 2. In some cases, on thicker routes, we had 3 target airlines. So we knew if the inevitable happened, and it came on February the 3rd, 2012, the team and I were calling these airlines saying, right, can you start a flight to Berlin? And as that example, Air Berlin, who hadn't been online at that point, decided to start within 3 days. So and they're not a low cost, but of course you're right. A lot of the incumbents, particularly Wizz Air and Ryanair, who weren't in the market but they came back, they came and took some of the destinations. But it's a fallacy that it was all low cost recovery. It wasn't. I want to say something like 35% of the Malev network was recovered by low cost. Everything else, the low cost boom has generated from Budapest is incremental. And some destinations were just not recovered for a few years. So for example, the Balkans, none of the low cost could get any authority to fly there. And the Hungarian government issued a tender, and Wizz Air received some subsidy to operate those routes for 5 years. So it was a combination of everything.
Good. One more question from Enzo, also very interesting one. What have been the strangest requests coming from the airlines in terms of modification, adaptation to the airport infrastructure in order for them to start flying them to Budapest? And following question, did you go for them for those strangest requests?
Okay. Enzo's got a lot of questions. Yeah, let me see. I don't recall too many strange questions. I would say and again, at the time, I was in charge of operations as well as aviation marketing. So we had to look and satisfy the operational needs. So strange to a point for us, yes, because they were new, but they were functional needs. So one example, we talked to several of the European airlines who wanted to have, as you have in Germany, as you have in Austria, as you have in other Schengen countries, they wanted to have automatic boarding gates for boarding the aircraft, which are commonplace. Scan your boarding pass. You don't need to see a gate agent. Of course, the benefit for the airline is it's saving cost on handling that passenger, etc. And it's free movement of people in Schengen, or at least it is. So we looked at that. We undertook a procurement, looked at the hardware, looked at the best solutions, benchmarked, and we didn't implement them because the authorities here had a local clause or a local regulation that said they had to check every document. Now that's changed because I think they realized that they were one of the few countries that were still requesting this. And I'm talking, of course, in a non-COVID situation. So we've implemented them and it worked. So that was one example. Another one came with Emirates when they were upgrading to their 777. They wanted double boarding bridge. And okay, we had 1 or 2, but we had to adapt them. But again, it's driven by a functional need as well. So I wouldn't say it was an outrageous request. And perhaps still saying in the same logic as well, when we had the growth of long haul to North America, to the US, and Canada in particular, they need extra security arrangements in the check-in halls, etc. They needed TSA capable facilities, etc. So we had to set all of these up in our infrastructure. So to the absolute question, they weren't strange or peculiar, but it's something that we've done. And perhaps what springs to mind now, what we're looking at isn't necessarily just airline driven, because I think you could say every airport is adapting to the functional needs of what an airline wants to have. So right now, we've COVID friendly made the airport by putting distancing stickers everywhere. We've got a whole host of signage in multiple languages, particularly Hungarian, of course, English, Chinese as well, because we have got the growth of Chinese traffic. And just staying with the Chinese element as well, we've installed hot water taps in prominent areas where people can make access for them. So these are not things that are driven by the airlines per se, they are driven by the change in consumers. And if you want to grow your business, you can grow your business, of course, through airline acquisition, but you really need to be consumer friendly as well. And this is something that the team have done really well in the last couple of years, and they will continue to do going forward and being responsive.
Perfect. Now a couple of questions from our friend Klaus Rasted. He's not exactly an aviation person, but he's an innovation strategist, a storytelling expert coach at McKinsey. So a guy with very interesting views on things. So a couple of maybe non-aviation questions, but I'm looking forward to what you will say, what your answers will be. So the first one, what are the 3 ideas that you wanted to implement, but which you discarded because they were too weird, let's say?
Okay, I really had to think long and hard about this one because, again, similar to the last question, a lot of it's function driven, but the ones that spring to mind are recent ones. So I would hope most of the viewers and the people who see this video are familiar with our infrastructure. We have a beautiful airport, of course. We have a nice terminal called the Skycourt Terminal, which is the central plaza, if we call it that. And right in front of the Skycourt, simply driven by the growth in business that we've seen over the last decade in particular, we needed extra baggage hall capacity. So we built a huge baggage hall, temporary baggage hall, until we built a permanent one with the new terminal whenever that arrives. But the only location we could put it is literally blocking the airside view. Not too dramatically. Those of us that work at the airport, it does upset us because we're used to having complete transparency of the whole point, the whole area. But it blocks a little bit of it, and it's some 300 square meters or so, or thereabouts, on the roof size. So one concept that we had was to come up with a design, a weird and wonderful design. And we looked around. Of course, no one had an industry benchmark for how to make a building blend into the background of a beautiful runway and apron. So we went for alternative ideas in terms of what we could do to make it interactive. We played with augmented reality. We wanted to make it interactive. We wanted to have the ability for people to use their phones to use augmented reality and have some colorful elements to it. And the one we settled on was ultimately a global map. So you have to imagine, if you're looking out a huge window, which Skycourt does offer, you'll see a silver building, which incidentally isn't ugly. It's quite sympathetically built. And we were going to implement a colorful globe, a picture of the globe of maps. And Budapest will be featured on it. And the idea was that you could be able to, on a tablet, look through a tablet and put in your destination. And then you would see on the tablet an aircraft leaving Budapest going to your destination. We fine-tuned it. We went to 3 or 4 iterations, and then a judging panel, let's call it that, maybe 3 or 4 of us, we said, it's in England, you have a product called Marmite. I don't know how many English viewers there are, but this is a product that you have. It's made from yeast extract.
Yeah, you hate it or love it.
Precisely, thank you. And we felt, given the location that this was at, and everyone will see it, my own feeling is that it would be colorful and people would love it. But we know that you can't please all of the people all of the time. And you have to keep in mind the timing. So this was in February. And then what ultimately, I wouldn't say killed it, because we might revisit it, or the Budapest Airport may revisit it in the future, was the price tag for implementing it, because we've got a corrugated roof. So we needed to have something built bespoke to go on it. I think it could be done, but once you saw the price tag and we knew we were heading into COVID and we knew what would happen with COVID, we need to stop cost. We need to reduce cost. Mm-hmm. So that was probably one of the weirdest things that we did. And other than that, I mean, I know he's asked for 3. Similarly, outside, we built a new roundabout coming right into the airport, which is a prominent location. So we wanted to have a landmark there. Think Heathrow, before you come to the tunnel, you got a big, I think it's an Emirates aircraft there now. Think other airports where you have huge prominent landmarks. And we wanted something emblematic of Hungary. And we came up with 5 or 6 options, and we finalized on one. I won't go into it because I don't think we've got the copyright for it yet. But again, it's a similar reason. We stopped it because the cost was prohibitive at the time of going into COVID. Maybe they'll revisit it later, but it will be another Marmite story. Some people would love it and some people would hate it. And it's not the type of conversation you want to have when you're heading into a downturn. I think you can be bold and brave and take on some of those decisions when business is flourishing and all your stakeholders are happy. But so we parked that one too. And perhaps the last one that comes to mind is, it's not weird and wonderful. I mean, I travel, we all travel. A piano, I had a heart and a passion for having pianos in the terminal. And then we used to have a couple of our operational colleagues who were more resistant to it. because they said, oh, they don't want to listen to people playing the piano all day because they have to work there. So, but as we know, if we travel quite a lot, you see them in many, many airports, I believe, and railway stations. So this is something that is not so weird, because I think it's something that provides an interactive user experience for passengers. And I think this is what an airport environment needs to have, because people will have dwell time there, not all the time. Particularly now, as we get into COVID recovery, people will spend more time at the airport. So they need to be able to do something that engages them. And pianos hasn't been abandoned. It's on the put it on ice list for the time being. So they would probably be the three that come to mind.
By the way, I'm sure Enzo would love having the piano in the terminal, as many people know, he's a fabulous piano player. So definitely would be great for him. Another question from Klaus. What is the one thing you wish all travelers learned that people like you know already?
I think for everyone who knows me, I'd like to think they know me as a patient person. But equally as a traveler, as I think many of us are, we're not first to the airport. So we're generally in a rush. We wait till the last minute to get there. And then you always find yourself in the security screening queue with someone who has it feels like they've never seen an airport before. They don't know they have to take stuff out of their bag. And yes, we have a lot of first-time travelers, so we do need to exercise patience. But for me, at least, it's frustrating. We have videos everywhere explaining the process. In some cases, we have hostesses or hosts explaining what you have to do. But people just seem to switch off reality. And it used to bug me more than it does now, because I think I've become a little bit more patient now. And I do, ashamed to admit it, I just walk past people. Because like many airports now, you've got to get throughput in there. And like many other progressive airports, we have footprints, stickers in different bays. But a combination of our security staff are too busy to call people forward. But as I know the protocol, I'll walk around if there's gaps then, and I'll present myself further on in front of the queue, whilst the said man, woman, child, or whomever can take as long as they want. So that would be the one irritation that I have, because security is important. But if people could get more prepared a little bit earlier, I think, again, a few minutes here and there, not just for me, but for everybody, because it's factually proven through people smarter than me doing research that the security environment is one of the most stressful elements of an airport. So whether you're going fast or slow, you really want it to be as transparent as possible in terms of what you need to do. So that would be my bugbear.
Very good. Final question from Klaus. If you had $10 million or euros for an experiment and you could do anything, what would you do? Klaus is very big on testing, but he doesn't.
Yeah, of course.
He doesn't mean Corona testing, but testing ideas. So if you had 10 million for test an idea.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give two angles to this. Firstly, because we cannot talk about the future without talking about sustainability, and there's a hardcore of people who say you'll never get to net zero with aircraft because there's not going to be a fuel that's going to be powerful enough. Nuclear, maybe in the future. I don't know. I'm not a scientist or an engineer. So 10 million wouldn't cut it. If you had 100 million or 200 million or a billion to develop fuel that's A, super efficient, and B, gets you to the ranges that we have with aircraft, then I think that would do the wonders for sustainability. But as I've only got 10 million as per Klaus's budget, let me give something a bit more short-term and realistic. Both of my circle of friends, network, business colleagues, whomever, I get a little bit irritated when we get pulled into the whole climate change and global emissions debate. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we're not a problem. But again, depending on who you talk to, I think you'll get ranges of between 2 and 3% maximum for aviation as a polluter, as a contributor to global emissions. It's 2 to 3% too much, some can say. But when you compare it to the total transport industry of something like 16 or whatever it is, 20%, it's nothing. So what would I do with 10 million as an experiment? I would probably engage the smartest aviation schools and get them to come up with some kind of strategy that helps us promote our industry in a sustainable, smart way and says, guys, we know it's 3% and 3% is not good, but here's what we're doing to promote safe travel, efficient travel, bundling together everything that's coming from the manufacturers in terms of better technology, more efficiency, higher seat density, which means that there's less aircraft moving around. All of these aspects, and biodegradable materials and biofuels. If we had a better way to communicate that, instead of one aircraft manufacturer saying this, airports, us for an example, we've got a net zero strategy, and we'll get there because we can, because we don't fly off the ground. And we will, and we've done a lot as an airport to get there in terms of following the sustainability agenda. So to come back to the point, I would engage some of the best aviation schools and ask them to come up with a best global, robust communication strategy with some experiment that can be concluded to convince the wider masses of public that aviation is here to stay, because it's a means to get from A to B. It's the only means to get from A to B in some countries, which are so cut off from remote areas. And we need to promote it, we need to support it. And these are the measures the industry are working on to show and demonstrate to you that it's just being done in a sustainable and responsible way. I'm not sure I answered it fully, because when I hear experiment, I imagine test tubes and things like this, but I think this could be in some way an experiment to convince the doubters that we're not that bad, and we're working proactively with community to improve our efficiency. And the other side of that coin is by convincing more people that we're not as that bad, and we're working towards a sustainable and a net zero future at some point, it may encourage people to fly a little bit more, because as we're all in the industry, we love flying. And especially in an environment like now, where many of us have been entrapped for 6, 7, 8 months. God, what I'd give to get on a plane now to get somewhere, whether it's warm or, and I will soon, but I have to be driven by what's open. Yeah. And that's maybe something we can talk about later.
Yeah, I love that angle, and actually Klaus has a very interesting angle on that as well. He also obviously as well is very keen on sustainability, but he loves flying as well. And what he said, exactly what you said right now, we need to encourage more people to fly, because when more people will be flying, there will be more money in the system, and thus more money for research and development. So we'll get faster to those new technologies, hydrogen, sustainable aviation fuel, whatever is that will bring us closer to those net zero targets. So, and we have also sustainability related questions later from Chloe. So yeah, looking forward to continue on this debate. Let's have a little break from aviation, and let's talk about running. It's not a secret that you are a passionate runner. We've met a couple of times at a fantastic event you guys are doing every August or September in Budapest, the Budapest Runway Run. But you also done a couple of marathons. So how many it was, Kam? How many did you complete?
Well, according to the medals that are hanging in my bedroom, it's 10. It's 10. So yeah, I decided I did get to 9, and then I just didn't want to finish with the odd number, and I was convinced to do one more to make it around 10. So that was in London last year in 2019. So, and now my marathon shoes are hung up in exchange for half marathons, which are less invasive on time. So.
Yeah, and which one was your favorite? Was it New York, London?
Whenever I tell people London, they think it's because I'm biased, I've done all the world majors, so New York, Boston, Chicago, Tokyo, Berlin, and London, and they're all fantastic. Don't get me wrong, with crowds, millions of crowds cheering. But London has a carnival atmosphere because it's the one thing. It's the world's largest fundraiser in one day. So, but consequently, you have more or less so many first and only time marathoners, and they all wear outfits and uniforms. And generally, for first-time runners, they take an entourage of about 10 people to come and support them. You don't see that so much in the other races because you have more regular runners there. So I think it just, by virtue of having more amateur runners in London, and I'm an amateur runner, you get a crowd element. And the streets of London are so tiny, and the history of London, everywhere you go, it's like you're passing a museum. So I'd say London is my favorite, and not because I'm biased.
And what was your best time?
Best time was 4 hours 25. So it's not the fastest, but I did all 10 within a range of 4:25 and 4:51 or something. So that's I'm quite happy with that. So It's a long way.
I just did one half marathon in Valencia last year, and yeah, that was painful as well.
What was the time?
Just slightly above 2 hours. So
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, but it was great experience as well. Valencia is a great city for running, definitely. Coming back to aviation, we have a question from a person who preferred to stay anonymous, probably from Hungary. So the question is, how much traffic per annum can Budapest generate from neighboring regional airports, including my home airport, Košice, Debrecen, and Oradea in Romania?
Yeah, I don't think it's so easy to quantify, and it's not because I don't want to answer the question. I think for our catchment, let's call this a catchment area, all the destinations that you mentioned, they don't have so many options to travel internationally, or domestically they can, because some of them are small countries, but so we would be the closest international airport. So the benchmark that I generally use as an answer for this question is, if you go to our parking lots, you see license plates from all of these countries. And okay, it's not the most accurate barometer, and we did a poll, I think about 7 or 8 years ago. I'm not sure we did one more recently. Maybe Balázs and my team knows the answer to that. And I think that poll suggested some 12 to 14% of our traffic originated from the catchment. So some of it, the Bretons, of course, in Hungary, of course, and the southern parts of Hungary as well. So it doesn't mean it's from neighboring countries, but we would be the closest international airport. And the more connections that we've had, and just to give you a perspective, so when we had Malav in 2011, I think we had 90 destinations, and now we have 160 or something. So we have many more destinations than we did then. So that gives more opportunities for people from the catchment. And not just we have more destinations, we have a lot more frequency. So and the team and I, which is probably relevant for this, the team mainly, they did the hard work, thankfully, and I'm grateful to them to do that. Every year they have road shows where they go to these regions and they showcase Budapest Airport to the travel agency and tour operator community there. And they take a number of airlines who operate from Budapest, and they showcase, look, dear Košice residents, dear Debrecen, dear Oradea, or wherever, say, did you know if you fly from Budapest, this is what you'd get. You get daily flights with Qatar Airways, or double daily with Qatar Airways. You'd get X number to London. You get 16 flights a day to London at a peak time. All of these are showcased, as well as the parking products that we have and the other products that we have at the terminal. And this has worked well. And the reason why we do this year in, year out is because it stimulates demand from this region. So if I had to make an educated guess, I would say maybe 12, 14% of the traffic that we get today, which in a good year, 2019, 16.2 million, came from the catchments.
Yeah, and I'm definitely part of I've used Budapest many times, exactly because of the reason you mentioned. So when I was flying to Africa, for example, for our AviaDev events, most of the time I was flying from Budapest using either Turkish or Emirates, flying down there. So yeah, by the way, great experience always. So
thank you.
Another question from the same person, a very actual one about what's going on at the moment. So how serious is the current government support takeover bid for Budapest by Indotech Group? Some rumors probably are going on internet.
Oh, okay. This is going to be my shortest answer, as you will appreciate.
Yeah.
Firstly, it's a shareholder topic, and no comment. That's 5 words.
Totally understood.
I can't look. All I can say is that whatever's been published in the media from our shareholders, I can repeat, which is that they've made it clear that they believe in the long-term prospects of the investment they made into Budapest Airport, and they still have 65 years to run of the concession. So I can't elaborate on that because I'm not a shareholder and it's not my topic. So, but then if you look at any other industry, if anyone's successful, bids can come, but more often than not they disappear. But that's as much as I'm able to say, I'm afraid.
Of course. Now I have a couple of questions from Chloe Greenbank, the editor at Regional Gateway, our media partner. One of the questions is, what key skills did you bring to the airport and what do you leave with?
Okay, right. I'm not the most comfortable answering questions about myself, but it's for others to judge. But let me say, okay, I hope and I believe I came with passion, enthusiasm, loyalty, and commitment, and a desire to succeed. Because as I said before, I'm a commercial guy, I'm a marketeer. But I leave with all of that that I had, and also with a robust understanding of the operational aspects and all of the other important elements of an airport that I didn't know previously, because I managed them for several years. I see how they fit together. And I think ultimately, I knew this to an extent before, but I wasn't on a C level in my previous organization, but I certainly have been here. And one fact of life and of this experience here is that you can only succeed if you have a real team ethic and a supportive culture. So I had the good fortune when I joined of having a CEO and a board that literally gave me a blank canvas and said, right, you paint this canvas, you make us successful, you deliver. And they left us to it, metaphorically speaking. And we did. And year in, year out, the team delivered. Not me, not just the 3 or 4 of us who go and see airlines, everybody in the system, from the whole back office in our commercial team, including the analysts, the marketing people, the people who were putting digital posts out there, everyone who put us on the global radar played a part in that. So yeah, so that's one of the biggest, not learnings, because I knew every textbook teaches you that you need to have that ethic. I think that's a key ingredient that I'll leave with, along with what I came with, I hope.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Another question from Chloe. She's saying that low-cost traffic and point-to-point connectivity have been the primary focus for Budapest, but have the challenges of the last year, or she means probably 2020, and the reset across the aviation industry presented an opportunity to change this model?
I don't know how to take this question, Chloe, but let me try and answer it in the way I interpret it, the way you explained it. You're suggesting that low-cost traffic connected was primary for us, but the challenge of COVID, I guess, and the reset presents an opportunity to change this model. Now, reading it as a native English speaker, that suggests to me that there's a concern that low cost isn't the right approach for us. But I would reverse that, and I'm going to be very careful, because we value all of our airline partners. But if you look across the European space, not just European but global space, the airlines that are thriving are the low cost. They're the ones with multi-million dollars and euros in their bank accounts. They're the ones who haven't been bailed out. So I think there's an argument to be made to say they're the most successful segment presently operating. That said, we do need a Lufthansa group. We do need an Air France-KLM group. We do need IAG group, because they provide network connectivity. We need all of the US airlines. We need competition like this. And it's a whole fabric of different segments that need to work together. But you're right, we did grow post-Malev with low cost because they were agile, they were quick, and they're the ones with massive aircraft order books. And I think the low cost segment grew by some 300% between 10 and 19, whereas long haul alone, like I said before, grew by 900 or nearly 1,000%. So I'm not sure that we have to change anything dramatically. And also low cost deliver point to point passengers, not just low cost, but network airlines. When it's local passengers, they contribute to your country, to your city. So they come, every one of the passengers that we have generally are spending money in Hungary, which is good for the economy, good for the treasury, and good for the sector and tourism. Whereas if you look at hubs, where in some examples, some 20 to 40% are connecting passengers, they're using limited infrastructure, which in many cases it costs them less and therefore less revenue for the airport. Plus, those passengers are not coming to the city or the country, so they're not investing into the country or city. And I don't want to disparage, some of the super hubs, because they exist for a reason and they'll continue to exist for a reason. But if you look at a Heathrow as an example, I can't remember the numbers, but let's just for argument's sake say 80 million. Let's say 25 million of that is transfer. That means 25 million people are not spending in the UK economy. They're spending with Heathrow. Every one of the passengers, I stand corrected because we do have some self-connecting passengers. 98% of our passengers, more or less, are contributing to our society. So if you look at all of those things that are important, not just for us as a private operated airport, because we get money for every passenger, regardless of the segment, it's important for our community, for the industry, and for tourism. So yeah, we've organically grown a lot with the low cost, but now in the last few years as well, we've seen a lot of the network airlines grow. I mentioned the long haul ones particularly, but we've also seen a lot of the short haul network airlines growing as well. BA, for example, with a hugely expensive and valuable Heathrow slot, they had 3 flights a day in 2018 between Budapest and Heathrow. They could have gone anywhere with a valuable Heathrow slot, which some say could be, is worth 50 million US dollars. They picked Budapest for a 4th slot there, not just because they had nowhere else to put it, because they had plenty of demand. It's because they believed in the market opportunity to feed their hub from there. So I think it's a bit narrow when we say the low cost, and I don't want to, suggest the question is wrong, but it's just any airport now, any responsible airport now needs to be all things to all people. So with a low cost, a lot of them want very limited infrastructure. Aircraft are on the ground for 25, 30 minutes. They need to have the ability to just get in and get out. And if you look at the passengers who are using these facilities, and I'm one of them, it's efficient, it's clean, it's cheap, it gets you from A to B. And on short haul traffic, short haul destinations, this is perfect. I think you need a bit more, as you're saying, English bells and whistles when you're flying long haul, which is why there's no real successful low cost long haul that succeeded from Europe at the moment. So yeah, but right now our split between low cost and non-low cost, let's call it that, we have about 54% low cost and 45% non-low cost. So I think we have a good balance.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you do. A last question from Chloe, very complex one about sustainability, which we already touched a little bit. So the question is, with the industry now focused on recovery, we are seeing a drive for sustainability across the aviation sector. So here comes the first part of the question. What green achievements are you most proud of from your time at Budapest? And yeah, maybe you can answer this one and I will get to the second part later.
Okay. I'm proud of a lot of the achievements that the company have delivered. We have a fantastic sustainability team and a department who looks after the green initiatives. And of course, we support them as management, and with my team, we support them with the areas that we manage. So I think one of the most recent examples of where we've been proud and where my team supported them, where we developed an eco-friendly shopping bag to give to the duty-free company, and this is a sizable bag, which means that the duty-free company are not using their plastic bags. And this is a sustainable bag, and not only was it widely received positively, it also gave us an award from the retail community, and something that the team were very proud of. And it's just little things like this that we've been able to work collaboratively on a short period of time to deliver it. Next, staying with the retail element, with our retailers, but also our food and beverage operators, we're going to work on a strategy to get rid of single-use plastics. A lot of this will have to be done anyway through regulation, but we are pushing the agenda. So right now, and this isn't, I guess, too much of a secret, everyone's struggling. All of our retail partners have struggled. We know that, and they can't pay their bills. We've all got bills to pay, so we're trying to find a common balance. And so our general approach is, okay, if we give you some relief from your rent for a period of time, then we want you to push forward the sustainability agenda. We want you to get rid of single-use plastics. And yes, it wasn't so agreeable in the beginning, but they understand, because a lot of the products that are available now to replace these cost more money. And we're saying, as you still need to do it. We're not telling you to take a hit on your margin, just increase the price by a few cents. These kind of things that we're pushing forward. So we do have a strong sustainability approach, because COVID will pass and sustainability is still going to be an issue. And it talks to the point that I made earlier. We need, as an industry, to talk about all of the good things that we're doing. And one final thing that I think the team should take collective credit for is on the number of e-chargers that we've put around the airport, both in the public car parks, but airside as well. We've managed to, through our Green Airport program, we've got a program that we've rolled out to our handling partners, for example, and other actors at the airport, where we're politely obliging them to work towards certain targets, to have a certain percentage of their fleet working with purely electric vehicles. And in order to facilitate that, then we're having to put e-chargers everywhere. So, and I think it's the right approach. And of course, there's going to be many, many other things that we have to look at in the future.
Well done for all of that. Second part of the question: what carbon reduction measures would you like to see being rolled out across the global airport community? And are net zero ambitions really feasible given the current financial state of the industry following COVID, or is it really just about survival right now?
Well, I think I gave one or two examples of some other measures, for example, getting rid of single-use plastic, etc., and not stopping there. It's about your waste distribution as well. We've already got an ongoing project about how to separate the waste and making sure that we're using not just reusable waste, but we have a responsible way how we're recycling it and helping our partners get rid of it. So this is all part of the agenda, which is why we've got many people working on it. We're working with aviation communities and schools in the vicinity just to find anything new that can help us get to net zero. Of course, this is in addition to being responsible in the offices as well, in terms of getting rid of the plastic bottles that we used to use for water, to having water coolers, to having glass bottles now, glasses everywhere. And I don't think in any of our meeting rooms you can find any plastic. So these are just small things, but we do have an aspiration and a signed up commitment that we want to get to net zero as an airport community by 2030. And I think we're moving in the right direction. All of the things that within our sphere of influence, I think you can take for granted that we will deliver them, because we're on a great roadmap and a charge for that at the moment. I think with an airport like ours, where we often get referred to as an airport operator. I don't like that term, because we don't operate anything. We manage a series of actors who run their business. So we have to make sure that they're aligned to this net zero strategy. And I think everyone is. I use the ground handlers as an example, switching a lot of their polluting dollies airside to electric dollies, for example, is one direction that will help us get there. The tougher one's going to be fuel in the air. But I know that the aircraft manufacturers are working very hard in that perspective. So I don't think it's an impossible ask as an industry, but certainly for an airport, we've got a robust strategy and a roadmap with incremental milestones each year for the next few years that will bring our footprint down. And this is something that we're very proud of. And we're a carbon neutral airport, again, for the third time according to ACI, by the way.
That's very good. We are about to finish very soon, but we have time for the last few questions. I have already two here on the Q&A section from people who are attending live. So maybe we can go through them quickly. This is an interesting one from Rida Bengara. Will Budapest Airport support airlines to resume flights, both scheduled and charter, from next summer 2021? What is probably he asking is, do you have some kind of COVID incentive scheme or something similar?
Yes, we absolutely do have a COVID incentive scheme. We introduced it. It's effective from January the 1st, which offers some relief both in terms of payments, but also some discounts if the airlines return and deliver a certain amount of capacity. So because it's quite a specific question, I invite you to send it in to us via Juraj, and we'll get back to you. The team and I will get back to you. And also, in addition to that, from April, we've just finished another consultation where we've introduced a whole different, let's say, charges and incentive model, which has more relief for 2020 in particular, or 21 in particular, because I think we realize it's not going to be smooth in the beginning. We're optimistic it's going to get better in the middle, and towards the end it should be not perfect, but getting back to where we were. So yes is the answer. We've got a range of incentives that are suitable for every airline. So please, if you can pass it on to one of our team and give us your contact details, we will come back to you.
Yep, sure. Question from Martin Takac. Hi, Kam. What would be your 2-3 advice takeaways for your successor at Budapest Airport? By the way, is that already public information that who will be stepping into your position?
Public not, because nothing's been decided. I think the decision the business has taken and the board is that they, for a period of up to 6 months, let's say that, I have 6 direct reports. I think you know our airline people, they're the most relevant for this. Balázs Bogac, head of airline planning and commercial analysis. So he and 2 of his peers will be reporting directly to the CEO, as I did, for a period of time, just so that both the CEO can get a better feeling for our areas, but also they can get some time, because I think if there is an appetite to go externally, they don't believe it's the right time now, as with COVID, you probably wouldn't get a flush of candidates. My own perspective as I'm outgoing is I hope that they look at the candidates internally, and I think there's enough of strength and capability there. It's not clear that they'll keep the structure as one whole commercial team or whether they'll break it up, but I think all options are on the table. But for the time being, anyone who's got aviation engagement with us, apart from me, your other stakeholders will remain the same.
Okay, so what would be then your 2-3 advice to whoever will become then your successor?
That's a spontaneous question. I better have a spontaneous answer. Okay, the advice that I would give to someone stepping into my shoes, assuming it's a like-for-like replacement, I'm not, and like I just said, I'm not sure it will be. Trust your people, listen to your people, because we've got good people who, by and large, some of them started with me in 2009, and we organically grew them. We fine-tuned in different areas, and we created a structure, we created a belief, we created a winning mentality. And these guys are capable. So my primary advice would be, before anyone contemplates that something's broken, look at what you've got, see what tools are in the toolkit, and then if you want to fine tune it and bring your own influences, so be it. But keep in mind, you are inheriting for this community the present world champions of airline marketing. And when you're at the top, there's not much that really needs to change. Of course, you need to refresh a few things. So I would say take a good deep dive and look at what you have before doing anything hasty. If, as I said, it's someone coming from the outside. So believe in your people, in your team would be one. What else? Enjoy it. Enjoy it. I think I have a mindset that in every job that I've done, because as human beings, we spend so much time in the workplace, at the best case, 8 hours a day, but as we know, sometimes 12 hours a day. So we spend most of our times in the working environment. And if we can't find a way to enjoy it, then we shouldn't be doing it. And it's not the job for you. But certainly make sure that you come in with a positive frame of mind and make yourself enjoy it. And because it's passionate to me, if it is one person, enjoys running, that will work for me every day. No matter how cloudy your thoughts may be on one day, you go out for a run, rain, snow, sun, hail, you will not have clarity by the end of it. I guarantee you that.
I think those are really, really great advice, whoever will succeed you in the position. I have one final question for you, but before we get to that, Kam once made a pizza for a world-class pop celebrity.
It was the late, great Whitney Houston. Mindful of time. So I was 19 or 18 or 19. I was taking a year out then. I was in Australia working in a pizza restaurant in Western Australia, which at that point in 1988, there weren't any 5-star. There was one in the area. It's called Scarborough Beach. And it was the only 5-star hotel. So any artists that came to town, they stayed at that hotel. And Whitney was in town. I call her Whitney because we got on quite well. And of course, she ate in the hotel with her private chef. But for the 2 or 3 days before the show, her entourage, led, who I later found out was her brother, Michael Houston, who was head of security, was coming to the pizza restaurant, and we were cooking pizzas. And of course, you didn't see too many Americans there. And so, what are you doing here? They'd tell you who they were. And I was a huge fan. And I Want to Dance with Somebody at that era when she was a global phenomenon, pre-Bobby. And I said, I would love if you bring a photograph of your sister. And he said, you know what, Kam, I'm going to bring her in. And I thought, no, it's never going to happen. So this was smartphone or camera days, or smartphone days. So it was 1988.
Pre-social media.
Came to work the next day. No selfie. But the next day, a big group of people walking. In the middle was Whitney, and they came into the restaurant. We had to close the doors because, as you can imagine, all of the surf bums were trying to get into the pizza restaurant. It was 8:30 at night, and I asked her what she wanted to cook, and I'm shaking like this, and she wanted a vegetarian pizza. So not only did I make it for her, I was able to sit with her and talk to her about her, about her experiences, and so it was a real pleasant conversation, and my claim to fame. And she did write on the back of the menu a really nice message to me, and, which is really pleasant. So,
and I guess you still
no one can take that memory away. I don't know where it is. I've moved a few times. I have it in my memory, but I know there were plenty of witnesses. I can verify if it's needed. But, it was a wonderful experience.
Yeah, really amazing. Okay, Kam, last question for today. most obvious question. Can you share with us at least a little bit your plans beyond 15 December when you leave Budapest? So do you plan or do you want to stay in the aviation industry, or would you like to have a longer break and to change?
Okay, I've got a quick answer for this. So I will take a 3-month break minimum. It might be longer depending on if something's happening. So in my head, I finish on the 15th. On the 18th, I fly to London. I will spend Christmas and the holidays with my family and my daughters in the UK. And my wish list was to go to Australia, Vietnam, and India in no specific order. Right now, none of them are open, but I'm optimistic that some of them will. So I've got a plan B, if you like, which is Tanzania in Africa, because I was told that that's open. And apparently I have some relatives there who run a safari business. So I reached out to them. So maybe that's where I will go in January. And my plan was to start looking for my next assignment, probably mid-February, whilst I'm still traveling, do some online interviews, etc., and see what comes. I will come back to Budapest because I'll have my residence here until end of April or longer. And yeah, but I'm ready for a change. I'd like to look to Asia because that's a developing region and see. And I think as I mentioned to you once or twice in the past, I feel like a soccer player who handed in a transfer request. It was reluctantly accepted, and now I can go to any club if I want to. But it has to be the right opportunity for them. It has to be the right opportunity for me, because I don't think now after this break I'll take another break, and it's somewhere where I can put my heart, soul, passion, energy for the next 10 or 12 years. So I'll think carefully. And if that's in 3 months or 6 months, doesn't matter. It has to be the right opportunity.
But it will be in aviation.
I think so. Yeah. Because as we said at the beginning, when it's in your heart, it's in your heart. You gotta stick with what you know. And I think, but on the other hand, I could be open to other options, but I think the probability is I'll stay in the sector.
Definitely good luck for that. As you also said to me, a last chance for a big contract. So fingers crossed. Good luck with that. Thanks a lot for your time, for really interesting and inspiring interview. Best of luck for your future. Thanks a lot for being a really engaged member of the community. Every time I met you, I think other members of the community can relate to that. I met you in Budapest for a runway run or at other events. You were always friendly and polite to everyone. So thanks a lot for everything. Well done for everything you've done for Budapest Airport, and good luck, best of success, and happy Christmas as well. Take care.
Thank you, Juraj. Thank you for setting up, and thanks everybody for watching. Much appreciated. All the very best. Stay healthy and safe.